But the flip side of that is a woman who causes shame. And a wife, a woman that causes shame is like rottenness to the bones of her husband. And essentially what that is that, if you bring shame to your husband, like he loses hope. And it's not just in your marriage per se, between the two of you, your interpersonal relationship. It's your reputation even out in the community. If you're known as a busybody or a liar or a gossiper and that sort of thing, you may be faithful to your husband, you may treat him like gold at home, but if if your name is not that well known or not that well thought of in the community, it still can bring shame to your husband. And so you want to just make sure that in all aspects of your life that you bring honor first to yourself. First to God, second to yourself. Thirdly, if you're married, to your husband. Even if you're not married, you do want for to bring a good reputation and a good name to your family, to your friends, to people that you really honestly and truly care about. And you don't want to work against your husband. And that's what this is also saying. Like, you don't want to work against him. You want to work with him. You want to do things that bring him honor, that show your love and your care and your respect of him as a person. And in that way, you're also loving and caring and showing respect to yourself. And honestly, ladies, bringing shame to your husband and your household can literally cause a man to fall apart. I have vicariously seen situations where men, like their woman has done things and has really just wreaked havoc on their life, and it's taken them a long time to sort of bounce back from that. And we don't want to be the reason why our husband or the man that we care about isn't following hard after God. We want to make sure that everything that we do with him and to him, everything that we say, is pushing him into his destiny, pushing him closer to God. Because when he gets closer to God, I'm telling you, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, he'll get closer to us. And that's what we want. That's what God wants for us in terms of our relationships. Now, looking at verse 15, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. And essentially what that's saying is saying to me is that a fool, fools develop their own way, and they think that their way are right. They develop their own habits, right, wrong, or indifferent. And they, just think that whatever they think their way of doing things is totally right. I know of someone now, and it's like no matter what you tell them, they just don't listen. And it is so frustrating. And people get so frustrated with that person. Like, they just say, well, if you're not going to listen, I'm not going to say anything else to you. Because as you're talking to them and you're sharing with them, they're talking and thinking, and oh well, I know, and oh well, I have, and you're just kind of like, okay. And we will actually see in the next chapter where it talks about being prudent and knowing when to conceal knowledge and when to share it. And that's what happens when you're trying to share something with a person and they're not appreciative of that. Then you have to know when to zip it, because there's kind of no reasoning with them. And a lot of times, we, even as Christians, even those of us that consider ourselves sort of wise, we justify our actions because, you can rationalize just about any behavior in your head. And a fool will do that and will thus justify their actions that way. And that rationalization is what keeps a fool a fool. And I know that word, that fool word, especially like in the black community, nothing would get you towed up quicker by your parents than calling somebody a fool. And in the black community, if you call somebody a black fool, oh my God, you almost saw Jesus. Your whipping was so bad. And I think that's because our parents saw how horrible the life of a fool is in the book of Proverbs. And they saw that it was nothing but destruction, and they didn't want that label attached to their children. They didn't want other people to think of their children as foolish at all. And I think that's because, as we've seen how the life of a fool can be. When we have justified our actions and we think that our way is right, it also prevents maturity. And, I've seen people, people in their 40s, and you see them, saw them 5 years ago, and they're still doing the same thing that they're doing now in terms of some behavior. And I'm like, really? Dude, like, you're 40. Come on. Like, at what point does maturity or something kick in and say, there has to be a better way? And what this is saying, like the second half of the verse, that but he who heeds counsel is wise, is that wise people, they not only listen, but they seek out counsel. They know that they don't have all knowledge, that they don't understand all things, that there are people out there that know different things than they do, that know better than they do. And as a result, they're wanting to make the best decisions that they can for their life and the most wise decisions. So they do seek out the counsel of others. That's sort of like, the saying about, what is the saying about the lawyer? He who represents himself has a fool for a client. It's sort of those things. That's what it's saying, that when, a wise person, even in a situation where you sort of think that it's slam dunk, black and white, like you're definitely going to win it, a wise person still will seek out that attorney, present all of the evidence that they have, and say, look, this is everything. I think that, my situation is X, Y, and Z. And, that expert, that lawyer will be able to guide you and say, oh yeah, we can do this. You may have asked for $10,000, they may be able to get you 100. But when you're a fool and you're justifying in your mind your way and what it is that you think that you want and what that can be, then, you're not going to possibly get the blessings that you have. And it's the same thing, with our bodies, our health. And, some people are always trying to diagnose themselves. And especially, I watch the doctors and they talk about, with the advent of the web and all of that information that's out there now, that a lot of people are self-diagnosing themselves, and it's causing, some healthcare costs to go up because we're wanting all of these tests and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying to not be an active participant in your healthcare, because I'm a firm advocate in that, by the way. But it's also to say, and I love my mom to death, but I have to get on her about this. Like, when something is up, I don't necessarily say, immediately go to the doctor, but I'm like, the next time that you go, ask him about this, ask him about that, ask him. And, as a result, he has been able to, figure out some things, change some medications, change some dosages, add some medications that has just made her feel better. And that's what wise people do. They seek counsel when they need to. When they don't know, when they don't understand what's going on, they seek counsel, and they listen, and they take the advice of the people that they seek counsel from. It's right in this chapter here. There's a whole lot that I can say about verse 23. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness. And what this means is, it doesn't mean that we play dumb. And it doesn't mean that we always conceal knowledge. We just know when, the Kenny Rogers song, know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. We know when to sort of show our hand, and we know when to keep it close to our vest. A person, or the prudent man that conceals knowledge does not blurt out everything that he knows. There is nothing that irritates me more than a one-upper. Every time you say something, they either have a story that's kind of one better or worse, whether it's better or worse than your story, or they just have a story period about whatever the situation is. You're like, can I just share my story without you saying, oh, that reminds me of 5 years ago I met, this person, he was a friend of my cousin's brother, and, just all that kind of stuff. A prudent man knows when to zip it. A prudent person knows when to zip it. You know when to speak, and you know when to be quiet. And that, oh Lord, that is something that I struggle with and that I'm trying to learn how to deal with. Oh my gosh. If that is one thing that I personally commit to work on in 2011, I've gotten a lot better. I used to be the person that if I thought it came out. And I've gotten a lot better. I think now I have to know. I think maybe I stayed quiet too much in certain situations with certain people, and I need to know and learn how to share more, and just kind of discern when it's a right time to share and when it's a wrong time to share. And same thing with people, when it's the right person to share with and when it's not the right person to share with. One thing about just being if you're just kind of always sharing your knowledge and you're not being prudent about that, is that it can come across as sort of obnoxious. And there are people that you know people like this. You know exactly, and I'm sure as you're sitting here watching this that you're thinking of a person or two that you're like, that is what they always do. And see, that's something that you can learn from. You can learn to not be that way. That if that gets on your nerves, then you can temper yourself. You can exercise self-control, because that's what it basically boils down to, is a lack of self-control, and a little bit of pride. And I think I touch on that in a minute. But you just you can learn and to temper yourself not to do that. And then also, when people kind of are not prudent about sharing their knowledge, they dominate a conversation and they don't really give other people a chance to share. And you don't want to do that, because you can learn, you can gain wisdom from listening to other people and their counsel and their advice and their stories. And as I said, it is an expression of pride. Like, you just think that you are smarter than the average bear, that you know a little bit more than everyone else, and that they should sit up and take note and listen to everything that you have to say. But the prudent person knows how to share things in a way that is humble, that is done with care, and that is done with grace. And you can also, maybe there's a person or two that come to your mind that whenever they don't speak often or they don't speak a lot, but when they do speak, it's like E.F. Hutton. When they talk, you listen, because you know what they're going to say is prudent, is knowledgeable, and you can pretty much take it to the bank. It's something that's going to help you and bless your life. When knowledge is appreciated, then we can disperse it with care, humility, and grace. When it's not appreciated, conceal it. So essentially, and people that you can share things with and who you can't share things with, who appreciate your knowledge and who don't. And if you're in a situation like at work or in a meeting and you're not sure, you can give just a little bit or ask a question that may give people an opportunity to think. And at that point, you can sort of determine or discern whether or not you should share, whether or not you should zip it. But that's something you sort of have to practice. Try maybe practicing it with people that you care about and that you're comfortable with, and then you can extend it into other areas of your life. As I was saying about when knowledge is not appreciated, conceal it. If you think about, if you look at Matthew 7:6, it says, "Cast not pearls before the swine." And what that is saying is that, you don't give your knowledge, which is precious, which is the thing that you have that no one can take away from you. You don't give it to someone that's not appreciated, that's not going to appreciate it at all. It's not what you want to do at all. And lastly, a foolish man lacks self-control and discernment. And that's essentially what this is. And also the interesting thing about the heart of the fools proclaims foolishness is like they don't conceal anything. They open up their mouth and remove all doubt about how ignorant they are, and that's that saying, like, rather to remain silent and seem wise than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And that's what this is advising us to do. It is saying essentially, learn when to hold them, learn when to fold them, know when to, share knowledge, and know when to zip it and kind of move on. And that's the same thing that we have to do in our relationships as well. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. This definitely has sat in my lap and has been a blessing to me. And if you have any comments, please leave them below as always. And I hope that you're well. Take care and be blessed. Bye.